Hello everyone, thank God it's Friday, but it's not just another Friday, it's the last day of the year 2021. Compliments of the season everyone, and if you're watching me or hearing my voice, I want to say congratulations, you made it. I was driving to work this morning on the Otedola Bridge. There was yet another accident and I saw an articulated vehicle, a commercial vehicle. There was a private vehicle that was completely written off. And it got me thinking. I've driven that road almost every day of this year, sometimes twice or three times daily. And you cannot but just think of, for some of us who acknowledge the supremacy of God, that there is just an exemption that you enjoy by the mercies of God. So for everyone who believes God out there, it's about time to say thank God. If you survived through this year as a Nigerian, it's a miracle. And we're just taking this time out to show some appreciation and to celebrate life. We also want to say thank you to everyone who's been a part of this morning, who has stood with Uncle Yuri and the team in the past 1 year. We celebrate your feedback and we are poised to do better even in the new year. I am Nifemi Oguntoye. Welcome everyone. And today we're continuing to review 2021 and some of the issues that shaped the year post-COVID, and even some of the political challenges that rocked this year as we head into a pre-election year where things are expected to get more interesting. I have in the studio with me a communications consultant, Ademola Adegoke. Good morning, sir, and thank you for finding time to come.
Good morning, Nifemi, and good morning, viewers back at home. So good to be here on this special day.
Compliment of the season.
Yeah, I wish you same.
You didn't come with the chicken. I mean, I thought that you would.
No, they are. Some ran away, but I've sent some people, after them to catch them.
Okay, joining us virtually is the spokesperson of the Nigerian Senate, Chairman Committee of Senate Committee on Media and Public Relations, Senator Ajibola Bashiru, who also is representing Osun Central Senatorial District. Senator Bashiru, thank you so much for joining us this morning, and compliments of the season to you.
Good morning, Nifemi, and compliments too.
All right, so let's.
My regards to our brother too, Yori.
Yes, thank you so much. Let's attempt a review of the legislative duties in the year. I understand you have just a few minutes to spend with us. Just yesterday, the information minister confirmed that insecurity was the biggest challenge of the Buhari administration in the year, evident in the new wave of banditry and kidnapping that we experienced this year. The issue also came up several times for deliberation on the floor of the Senate. What do you consider the high points of these deliberations, and how did you think the Ninth Senate responded?
I think in terms of our response to the issue of insecurity, I will say that in the past 2.5 years, the highest concentration of deliberation, motion, and resolutions has been in the area of addressing the problem of insecurity. Many of our colleagues have had to come with motions, specifically tabling the challenges they have in terms of banditry, in terms of act of insecurity in the various constituency. And of course, resolutions were taken. Part of the decision the National Assembly took was on the need to change the leadership of the armed forces. And of course, although Mr. President took his time, this was done. But then the other side of the intervention is that there was a special appropriation by the Senate and the House of Representatives to address the funding gap in terms of being able to focus on the challenge of insecurity with necessary resources. So the supplementary budget to the 2021 appropriation basically focused on the two-line item. One, addressing the problem of insecurity and addressing the COVID-19 pandemic, by which we made ample legislative appropriation of resources to be able to address that. And of course, we also got some fillip from international organizations and the countries who had either not been willing to support our effort. And that's why you have seen that the Nigerian Air Force, for instance, they now have the benefit of the Super Tucano that would help them in being able to rout out, the insurgency. And as you can see, in the past 4 weeks, the Nigerian security forces, particularly the military, have been on the offensive, particularly in Sokoto and some other parts of the Northwest, in being able to address this issue. In terms of legislative action, I'm aware that there are already propositions at the Constitutional Review Committee on addressing constitutional amendment to address the problem of insecurity. Personally, and I think my colleague, distinguished Senator Ike Ekwulemadu, we have before the Constitutional Review Committee bills seeking to introduce the state police, which is also being considered. There's also a bill that I've also introduced, which is seeking decentralization of the Nigerian police along zonal and operational line to ensure greater efficiency and greater monitoring and deployment of men and materials to address the problem of insecurity. The primary purpose of governance in section 14 of the Constitution is welfare and security of the people. So we are committed to continue to support the executive in addressing the problem of insecurity in the country.
There were calls from the Senate, several calls, particularly from the opposition, calling for the executive to rise to the occasion. Did that happen from your observation? Because opinions are divided really as regards how government responded and how it fared in that area this year.
And for what I've said, it's not from opposition. You see, when you are in the National Assembly, you are not there. We are not running the parliamentary system of government. It's in parliamentary government that you have government and opposition. We have a bipartisan National Assembly, and the call to strengthen security has come from the two sides of the aisle. And in this regard, I just told you that not only the executive have role to play, the legislative arm also have role to play. And our role, which we have performed, is in the area of appropriating enough resources to address the problem of insecurity. And at the same time, oversight function. Like, for instance, I'm a member of the Air Force Committee of the Nigerian Senate. We have traveled to be able to inspect directly facilities appropriated for and ensuring that the resources appropriated are actually being utilized. We have been in Gombe, we have been in Kaduna, we have been in Lagos, Abuja, and other operational theater to ensure that we perform our oversight function. In terms of executive action, I just told you, with what is happening in Sokoto and some other part of the Northwest, you can see that the resources are appropriated and the willingness of the Nigerian armed forces to take battle to the bandits in their in their territory is high. But as you know, problem of insurrectionary attack is not like conventional warfare. It requires a lot of tact. It requires a lot of deftness, and of course, tactical flexibility to be able to address. And these are part of the challenges that everywhere in the world where you have insurrectionary challenges, they are always facing. Even sophisticated military powers like the United States of America and Russia, when confronted with insurrectionary battle, it is a kind of a war of attrition that takes time and they take a toll on the resources of the respective countries. So I would say that on the level of the executive, the leadership of our President Muhammadu Buhari, has been put what is necessary to ensure that we address the problem. National Assembly, in terms of appropriation and oversight, have also been doing very well in that regard.
I'm going to return to you shortly. Let me bring Mr. Adegoke into this conversation. It talks about appropriation, it talks about legislation, it talks about some of the steps taken both on the side of the executive and legislature. We also saw the federal government approaching the court to have some of this bandits proscribed. It sounds like government is doing its best, but then we still have these issues. How do you respond to it?
Maybe government is doing its best, but I think we can do more. We can do more. All he has said, yes, they are okay, but there are still more to be done. I think there is too much of concentration on the kinetic approach to solving insurgency or the insecurity challenge, because the insecurity challenge we have in the country today is not limited to insurgency alone. You have other criminals all around, unleashing mayhem on the people. So I think there is too much of concentration on the kinetic approach. We can, also embed some other approaches into a strategy. Like he has talked about legislation. Yes, the legislature actually has a role to play in this whole thing, especially as it has to do with decentralization of our security apparatus. There is I think there is too much concentration of too much control from the center, which, yes, he talked about the regional structure of the police, but one issue that has been popping up all the time is the issue of state police, for example. Because as it is now, ours is about the only federal state that has just one single police control unit. You have to, because we say that every crime is local in nature, and the more we look at it from that angle, then the better for us. And also talking about the non-kinetic approach, we also maybe we can put our security agencies to task. We can call them to, like you said, make them rise up to the occasion by also looking at the place of intelligence in combating insecurity. Because Senator Bashir talked about Sokoto, what is happening in Sokoto, what is happening in Zamfara. But you will discover that all this has to do with military approach, direct military approach, and most times reactionary, not proactive. So, but proactiveness will mean that the moves by the insurgents or bandits or whoever, are nipped in the bud even before they are carried out. So, for me, these are areas that we need to look at, so that we are not only reactionary. Most times we are reactionary, even as we talk, even as we speak now. Sokoto, we know how many people were killed, some days back, even in this same Sokoto, and it was said that the bandits came, in their hundreds, in numbers, and then they were able to operate, unchecked. So we ask, where is the place of, intelligence in all this? So for me, these are all areas that we need to, even the Senate in their oversight function, the legislature in its oversight function, we need to pay attention to, so that we are not just, concentrating efforts on, yes, we are equipping the military, yes, all those are good, but these other ones too, even the morale of the troops, have we taken a good look at that? How morally or encouraged,
how motivated
so these are the things that we need to look at.
I just need to add very quickly that some of the observation in the course of the year, you recall that here in the Southwest there were issues with killer headsmen at some point, but with the inauguration of regional security network, it seems that we have had less of that, going forward. But Senator Bashiru, let's turn our attention to other issues because of time. Just like pre-election years, there was a gale of defection, in the Senate, and your party, the APC, seemed the bigger gainer. You look at your political life, for instance, you have stuck with one party from the AD to the AC, the ACN, and now the APC. Are you concerned about this rapid movements, particularly when you consider how it reflects concerns of ideology along political party lines and even the character of the politicians themselves?
First and foremost, I think the fluidity of movements from one political parties to the other is symptomatic of the fact that we are yet to crystallize ideological and political parties in Nigeria. I regret to say this. The political parties for now, from what I know, they are more or less like a special purpose vehicle for people to be able to access, political power at all levels. So it's easier for somebody, for instance, to be in APC in the morning, be in PDP in the afternoon, and sleep as a member, of the APC. Yeah. But I believe that over a period of time, the nucleus of each political party will begin to determine the nature, character, and content of the programmatic approach that will crystallize into ideological orientation. But I will not, subscribe to the fact that any of our political party is really, ideological in terms of its content. Then also there are so many factors influencing, movements, from people to the other. It will appear that influence of local politics at times, and of course ambition of individual politicians influence, whether they move from one political party, to the other. And of course, the provision of the Constitution in terms of consequences of when you move, particularly an elective arm, and defect to another party, appear to be more complied in breach than in reality. And of course, there appear to also be a kind of disparity as a treatment in terms of defection, even in terms of the constitutional provision that is not employed. For instance, at the executive level, a governor can move from one political party to the other, and there are no constitutional consequences, in that regard. So it will be convenient to enter on the platform of a political party and then drop that political party and then join another political party if at the executive level without any consequences. Whereas there are constitutional consequences in relation to defection at the level of the legislative arm, but that, except in few cases, in the 8th, assembly, that has also not been complied. So I think in terms of giving a necessary feeling to the idea that it is political party that are elected and that the representative are representing at that level, we need to strengthen our position as to ensuring that issue of defection have necessary political consequences.
Absolutely, they do. We just I just do not know how much impact you see this have on the quality of leaders that emerge via our democratic processes and its implication on the quality of leadership that is available to the people.
I think the fact that we presently have weak political parties, and I will say from the experience that I have, our own experience in our own tendency in the Southwest region in politics, our political parties were indeed, I would say, ideological. But then the exigencies of participation in national politics has necessitated possible collaboration and alliance with people who necessarily will not share the same political ideology, with us. At the same time, the leadership recruitment methodology in the various political party, with the emphasis on what is called internal democracy, has also impacted negatively on quality of representation. It will mean that if you have necessary resources, you may be able to get a ticket of a political party wherever there is disconnect between that resources and deep leadership orientation and a commitment to deliver will not matter in that regard. So going forward, I think there's a need for political parties to go back and address the question of quality and caliber of people that they present. Now, there appear to be a free entrance into any contest. There's even no questions asked as to whether people who want to fly the ticket of a political party even understand the manifesto and the ideology or whatever it is that the party represents itself. It just suffices for you to buy expression of interest form, buy a nomination form, and go into a contest. So there should be also leadership training, particularly for young persons who want to go into politics. I don't know of how many of our political parties, including my own, have such kind of leadership training in politics, economy, social relations to ensure the quality of participation in our political processes. My father was a member of the Unity Party of Nigeria, And I know that there are some, form of training for party cadres, party organizers, and even party membership and leadership to ensure that they get understanding of even the program and perspective of the Unity Party of Nigeria. So I see going forward, and I want our leadership at various political parties to see the need to improve capacity of individuals that want to venture into politics. That's and right. Not just see as another job, because that is the highest representation that you can be able to impact on the welfare, security, and development of our people.
As we speak, Senator Bashiru, we're just hearing news that President Buhari has signed the 17.127 trillion naira 2022 budget into law, and for perhaps the second consecutive year we see us return to the January to December budget cycle. However, I am concerned about Senate's approval of President's request to extend the 2021 budget implementation into March 2022. What's the implication of this, vehement appeal on the whole essence of returning the budget into, a yearly deal?
This is actually the third budget that would match our commitment to reversal to January-December budget cycle. The first budget, 2019 budget, the 2020 budget, 2020 budget, 2021, and now 2022. Then there's a difference between environment and the extension of implementation of aspects of the budget. The January to December budget is still very sacrosanct. The only thing that the National Assembly did, and not just in this year, but also last year, was to extend the implementation of the capital aspects of the appropriation to the end of March of next year, as we did also for the March of this year in respect of the 2020 appropriation. And what necessitated this? You see, previously, when money had been released to MDAs to implement projects, of course, there is always a time gap between when money is released, the necessary public procurement requirement are complied with, and implementation done. If there's a strict adherence to not extending the implementation of the project, it will mean by the end of today, all money that have been released will no longer be available for capital projects. They have to be returned to the treasury. I will tell you from my experience that returning those money to the treasury may ensuring in unnecessary over-invoicing and some other untoward or scrupulous financial processes to ensure that those resources were depleted. Is to ensure that those money that have been released for capital projects are utilized for the purpose for which they have been utilized, without the necessity of repatriating them to the treasury with the attendant problem of it being filtered away. That in the last year, we embarked on amending just a clause in the Appropriation Act to ensure the implementation aspect of the capital project, and capital project alone, not of course the current expenditure, is extended. And what that gained for the country in the 2020-2021 appropriation is that it helps us to be able to reflate our economy and ensure almost 100% implementation of the capital aspect of the budget. So as it were, now close to 100% of the resources necessary for the capital expenditure have been released. So we want to ensure that they actually utilized, rather than returning them back with the attendant problem of this being preferred away without any benefit to the Nigerian people.
I'd like us to talk about the Senate approval of foreign laws vis-a-vis the rising debt profile before you go. But let me bring in Mr. Adegoke very quickly. I'd like you to talk to us from the Nigerians' perspective, particularly their experience with economics and the rise in inflation and their marketing, the purchasing power. We just celebrated Christmas, and the news wasn't really as pleasant, but as regards what Nigerians could afford. We're told that in pre-election year, politicians pushed out a lot more money. Are you excited about 2022 in that regard?
I'm not excited. I'm not excited because the money to be pushed out, if it's not actually to drive the economy, it's not actually to buy up the economy. it's to, if the money to be pushed out, yeah, maybe if the money to be pushed out has to do with maybe campaign and all that, this will be short-lived, because the election goes, and Nigerians are back to, we go back to where we were before the election, or before the electioneering campaigns. But I will be more excited if we are saying that government is pushing money out to support SMEs. I know that they are doing things like you have trader money, but how far can those go? So for me, Nigerians have not had it fine, and we know. You understand? We know what the prices of items were, this time last year, and we know what they are right now. And so if you ask an average Nigerian, the way an average Nigerian measures the performance of any government is purchasing power. But if year after year the purchasing power of an average Nigerian decreases from what it was in the previous year, how do you now justify that government is trying? If I can afford maybe a fowl and maybe a little bag of rice for myself and my family last year, and I could not afford it this year, how do I justify that government is performing? So economically speaking, Nigerians have not had it fine, and even as the election year approaches, yes, we may have money out. You may have maybe printers, the media benefiting from adverts and all that, but this will be short-lived. So one will actually have preferred a long-lasting, sustainable effort, you understand, to back up the economy.
Senator Bashiru, if you will indulge us, we'd still like to have your opinion on Nigeria's debt profile and updates on the Electoral Amendment Act bill. But we have to go on a short break now, and we'll return with more. Stay with us. Senator representing Osun Central Senatorial District, Dr. Ajibola Bashiru, is our guest on the program this morning. I also have the honor to have communications consultant Ademola Adegoke. Gentlemen, thank you for staying the course on the program. Senator Bashiru, very quickly, other legislative functions that were carried out by the Senate and the House of Reps in the outgoing year was the approval of foreign loans request by Mr. President. There must be something lawmakers know that we do not, because as of July this year, Nairametrics had published that the federal government spent 1.8 trillion naira on debt servicing in the first 5 months of the year, representing 98% of the total revenue. I mean, is it still safe to borrow more?
I think the data from Nairametrics is false. It is false because all the money that is used for debt servicing are appropriated. Under the 2021 outgoing budget, about 3.2 trillion was budgeted for debt servicing, and we have a balanced budget. So therefore, there is no mismatch between the revenue accruable and also the debt servicing. And of course, the country has carry capacity for the loan that had been approved by the National Assembly. And you can also exemplify this by about 2 weeks ago, there was a closure to the Sukuk bond that was raised, about 250-something billion Sukuk bond raised, floated by the federal government. It was oversubscribed to close to 1,000%. It shows that the investing public, particularly those investing in debt finance, know and believe that Nigeria has the carry capacity to be able to carry those debts. So the question is not about whether facilities are being taken. What purpose are these facilities used for, and do they have the possibility of catalyzing the economy and ensuring that we'll be able to repay in the long run? Those are the germane questions. Even advanced economies like United States, Japan, and other Germany, UK, they engage in deficit financing. So deficit financing is a particularly creditable mode of public finance. And you also know that the challenge of the COVID-19 pandemic affected the price of crude international market, also affected the slow down the economy. The only way you can galvanize the economy to ensure and engage in deficit financing. So as far as the National Assembly is concerned, we scrutinize every item of debt request, and we match each of those requests with necessary projects that are appropriated for, and they will be funded in that regard. So we don't have any problem. The only problem is that some of these so-called analysts, they come with statistics that does not have any bearing with reality, and that
I think that your point is made very clearly in that regard. We have to let you go now, but the last time we spoke, you talked about the options before the National Assembly as regards Mr. President refusing to assent to the Electoral Act Amendment Bill. There are now reactions from, civil society organizations urging lawmakers to retransmit the document to Mr. President. Do you feel the sense of urgency? Some of them are saying that you perhaps will have to cut short on your holiday to give enough time for INEC to be able to adapt its programs to this new law, hopefully.
I think we are not on holiday. Still in my constituency. The work of a national legislature is not only when you sit in Abuja or in the Alo chamber. We work in terms of outreach to our constituents. We work in terms of oversight function. So it is still work in progress, even though technically we are on recess from sitting at the plenary. At the last sitting of the plenary, we have adjourned the resumption of our plenary till 18th of January. So we don't see any urgency that we need to reconvene before that time. And as I said, yes, civil society organizations have their own perspective on how they will urge us what to do. But I've told you we have 4 options, and those 4 options are really on the board. It's not just a straightforward idea about say go and override. We are not Boy Scouts in the National Assembly. We are statesmen who have track record of understanding the need to ensure we have legislation that is well thought out and that is not fought on the basis of ego between any level of government.
Senator Ajibola Bashiru, Senate spokesman representing Osun Center Senatorial District, thank you so much for talking to us, and compliments of the season to you once again.
It's my pleasure. Happy New Year in advance. Happy New Year in advance to me.
Thank you so much. So let's turn our attention back to the studio. You heard him talk about the issue of borrowing, that it's pretty much about, it's not really about what you borrow, it is what you use the borrowing for. Would you say that we have a track record of, judiciously using these borrowings for what they're meant for?
If we had had a track record of judicious implementation of the borrowed funds, probably people would not have worried. People would not have expressed the kind of concern that they are expressing presently. Yeah, people are worried that, yes, we borrowed this money, and at the end of the day, we will pay. And even, generations unborn will have to pay for the money. And at the end of the day, you cannot see, serious proof or justifiable proof of what the money has been used for. And it's the narrative out there is that when the comparative cost analysis of projects here in our own climes here and elsewhere, shows that the prices of projects here are always 2-3 times higher than you find elsewhere. And so this is why people are worried that if you are borrowing this money and we can see, justifiable proof that this is what it's being used for, people will not complain. People will not complain. Now, the Sukuk funds that he talked about, I know that is the loan that is being used, for one of the roads. It's Benin Shagamu highway, and for how long government has been on that road. And the more the more you delay on delivery of a project, the more the price, the cost of completion goes up. So at the end of the day, you borrow one fund, you are not able to finish the project with it, and then because of the time lag between the time you borrow and the time of completion of the project, and then you now need to go and borrow again. So these are sources of worries.
Yes. Ada's called in from Jos. Let's hear her out very quickly. Good morning, Ada.
Morning, Ada. Listen, it's Ada calling from Jos. Good morning to your guests there.
Good morning.
Good morning, madam.
Of the season.
The same to you.
If the National Assembly means well for Nigerians, they should place national interests above personal, party, and primordial interest or sentiments. A simple example is the Electoral Act Amendment Bill, which is still hanging in the balance. The National Assembly should expunge the contentious direct primaries in that Electoral Act Amendment Bill and return it to Mr. President for assent to. There are so many other things, about 18 other items on that electoral reform that is very important. So we cannot throw away the baby with the bathwater if they really mean well for us. As regards insecurity, it will continue so long as the police is not decentralized and the military talk less. The most times they are talking about their strategies, how they are going to deploy the Tucano or whatever. So the past 1 week, they have been telling the terrorists, making it public, when they are going to deploy very soon. Their days are numbered and all that. Do we need all that information in the public space? Or is it what are they trying to do? Are they trying to give them room to relocate or what? I'm not in the military, but I don't think it's wise to always talk about how they're going to deploy the Tucano or whatever. And then again, they should do it in a coordinated form. Simultaneously. That's why when they finish with Zamfara, before you know it, they give them space. They escape to Sokoto or Katsina or whatever. Every day they are killing. Every other day. And we are still living in denial as a country. All the same, let's not give up on this country. I know we'll get it right sometime someday, but it has really been rough. This year has been really tough. But tough times never last, but tough people do. And I think Nigerians are very resilient. Above all, the government should also look at this thing holistically. Tackle the economic, from an economic, socio-economic viewpoint. Address issues of unemployment, hunger, illiteracy, and all that. A hungry and angry man does not have respect for law, humanity, and authority. That's what they should know. For us, the smart infrastructure is very important, not on paper. You tell us you're doing well, the economy is doing well, the infrastructure of the smart infrastructure. I cannot buy food to eat. Then what am I doing with the GDP you're talking about? Those things are just academic exercise. God bless you.
Thank you. Sometimes all you need as a Nigerian is good time to rant and then just, pour it out there what you're going through. So it's a good place to do that. The phone lines are open for you this morning. So you heard him talk about, I heard the Information Minister talk about the Petroleum Industry Act being perhaps the biggest achievement of the Buhari administration. But it took many years. It took, if not 16 years, to be able to arrive at that document. Why does it take so long? Because we are here talking about the Electoral Act. And it's taking forever to be able to update the document such that it will further enhance the conduct of elections.
The problem of our country will be solved the day we have true statesmen as politicians. People who are not just politicians, who are not playing politics for its sake, but who are playing politics because they really want to serve the people. We need to go to the genesis of this whole Electoral Act and the contentious clause that has given the president that the excuse to say he cannot sign. The source of it has to do with the friction between the governors and the various legislators representing their state. There is always this power tussle between the governors, and then the governors have this penchant, to want to, take the party, and then have total control of it at the state level. And then so they now decide who gets what, who represents this constituency. So, and then the legislators too, they are saying that, no, let us take this thing off the governors, so that if we make direct primaries, if we make it compulsory for all politics, then it then means that, you know, the indirect primary, whereby, you know, someone can sit somewhere, get some delegates, and then get them bribed, and then, you know, he has his way, will not be happening. That is the source of the problem between, you know, of this old Electoral Act. If truly our people want to, we have Democrats in power, why will a governor, for example, want to determine, you know, who gets everything in the state? And the legislators too, if they are not fighting, you know, if they are not fighting a battle of, you know, survival for themselves, they will also, you know, they will also be ready to say, okay, if the direct primary is causing problem, let's expunge it, or let's harmonize our positions so that we can move forward.
You're saying it is the true intent behind all of this that really
that is it.
Let's take Busaya's call from Port Harcourt. Good morning, Busaya.
Yeah, good morning, the presenter. I want just to appreciate your guest on maybe in the studio. My problem is, yes, where we are collecting those money, supporting the
we can hear you. We can hear you.
Yes. If those people are not saving money, how do we borrow money from them? We keep borrowing. What is our legacy to also give up? By my faith, he said, give. It is more blessed to give than to receive. So that's my concern. Let our leaders become proactive. Let them be proactive. Enough is enough of this borrowing. By my faith, the rich rule over the poor. The borrower is a slave to the lender.
Pritchard. Thank you very much for your contribution. I saw somewhere that the first time Nigeria borrowed from the IMF, you know, was, I mean, I can't remember, maybe from the 70s or something. And then he's concerned that we've been borrowing for a long time. But by now we should be lenders and not borrowers. But they said there's really pretty much nothing bad in borrowing, that even the finest economies in the world.
No, there is nothing bad in borrowing.
It is
there
what
is
you
nothing
borrow for that matters.
It is what, like we have said, there is nothing bad in borrowing. If you are going to borrow, and then you know, the project is completed in record time, and we can see, people can see the gains from the projects that you have used the borrowed fund for. We complain because we will pay. You know, the best of economies, even United States, Japan, and the rest of them, they borrow. But the point is not what you borrow. The point is, what do you do with what you borrow?
In a short while, Mazi Okorafo has called in from Aruchuku. Good morning, Mazi.
Good morning, Mr. Nifa. Good morning, our guest in the studio. You see, well, Happy New Year, because some country very soon they were saying Happy New Year, Happy New Year. But the question we are Nigeria is facing now, if you go to university, when you fail a course, they say carry over. We are carrying a lot of things over into 2022, whether we like it or not, because this one is no miracle. Whether you do crossover or cross nights or Passover, it is carried over. But the question is this: our honorable members, Senator, House of Reps, House of Assembly, Council, all of them, they are at home, some of them, but we have not seen a tangible thing many of them have done now. Just some of them will just go carry salt and rice and just bracket the people and say, yes, that's it. Which is not. I was expecting them now. Not all these issues we have been raising in this program, that's from January to now. So at least find solution to at least 30% or 40%. But I've not seen anything, no record, nothing. But at the end of the day, they will just come back next year and say, prepare for 2023. But the question is this, my brother and me. We have reached a level that this terrorist attack that is going on in Nigeria, criminality, name them. But if we don't get local police, local government police, or state police, plus federal government police, we are just wasting our time. Our educational sectors, we have seen how it's being bastardized. Many universities, polytechnics, going to education, students at home. Now, by next month, now you get around 10 or 11, children will be going back to school. Many people will be carrying their coming to school to say, please, carry forward. But the question is, my brother in the studio, where are we heading to? Whether we borrow or we don't borrow, what are we doing with them? And the people they are authority, they just keep that situation going to pack it. Where are they packing all these things to? People are dying. Go to the hospital. In short, 90% of Nigeria, whether they like it or not, either you suffer from either cough or catarrh or running nose or fever or any type of waist pain or back pain. Everybody in Nigeria have one symptom of what I've just mentioned, whether we like it or not. But where are the drugs? Brother, whether we like it or not, 70% of drugs in Nigerian hospitals are on the market and are fake drugs, which is not. So where are we going? Well, let us look inwards, so because the way we are moving, we are entering 2023 to 2022 before we wait 12 hours. If we don't take care of what we are doing, we are carrying over.
All right. Mazi, thank you so much for your contribution. We're wrapping up now. 2021 is supposed to be the post-pandemic year, and then a new variant came. Just yesterday, the WHO is saying over 1 million cases were recorded worldwide, the highest since the onset of the pandemic. The federal government is saying crossover services should be 50% capacity, but you look at Nigerians, it's like they have grown a thick skin. They don't want to hear anything about the pandemic again. We're still struggling with vaccinating 1% of the population thereabout. How do you see Nigeria move on from here? Because we've heard a lot about how the pandemic has negatively impacted on the economy. Are there ingenuine ways to begin? Are there things we can do to begin to emerge from this dark place?
Yes, there are things we can do. And I think that COVID-19 has shown us that countries that are not prepared for emergencies of this nature, will usually be the worst hit when occasions like this arise. The lessons for governments and citizens all over the world is that we'll have to live our life, but we need to be ready. We need to put a system in place that will be able to absorb emergencies like this without much, effect on the economy. Now, if we talk about our own country, how many of our citizens are vaccinated? What is the percentage of people that have been vaccinated? Even when we know that there are people who are not ready to be vaccinated, but even people who are ready to be vaccinated, they do not have access to vaccination. And it has to do with the fact that our country, for example, relies on people, other countries, bringing the vaccination to us. But if we have our own vaccination, we have developed our own vaccines rather, that we will not be at the mercy
which
of
is
other
not
countries.
Supposed to be an impossible task.
It is not with the research centers and that we have all around. That should not be rocket science. So for me, moving forward from the pandemic, countries need to start thinking of how they put mechanisms in place that will be able, to absorb emergencies of this nature. That you are not caught, pants down whenever, emergencies like this arise. But if we are relying on other countries, yes, we know that it's one world and it's a global village, and we cannot, relegate dependence of countries. We cannot relegate it to the background, but you need to stand on your own first, so that whenever issues arise, then even if you have to call for help from your neighbor, you know that you have put enough measures in place on your own. So for me, going forward, our countries need to put measures in place that will be able to absorb emergencies like COVID-19.
Communications consultant Ademola Adegoke, thank you so much for talking to us this morning.
Thanks so much for inviting me.
Happy New Year to you.
I wish you the same.
That's our show today. Thanks for being a part of it. Once again, we want to say a big thank you for all of your feedback in the outgoing year. We're poised to serve you better. I am Nifemi Oguntoye, standing in for Yori Folarin. I'll see you in the new year. Have a great time.